also goes to the sacrifice piece. Like you have to sacrifice things of a normal life, maybe some comfort, maybe some luxuries to live a life on top of the work that you actually do to achieve fire.
But when you actually look at the practicality of fire, I think it is close to impossible. Some people will do it, but I think it is practically impossible to fire.
Yo, B, let's go. You may have seen the clip and maybe heard word of mouth. Yet another podcast. Man, what could it be about? Is it truth or opinion? A couple of contradictions. We're here to challenge tradition and twist your vision. So we set on a mission to bring you rebel wisdom.
Hello, all. Welcome back to Rebel Wisdom. We have a special episode for you this week. I think this episode is going to be fire, no pun intended. We will be talking about the FIRE movement. If you don't know, it stands for Financially Independent and Retiring Early. I don't know what birthed this movement or this concept, but it is a fairly new concept, new in the sense of, I don't know, I think it became popular within the last maybe 10 to 15 years. I could be wrong, but it's a pretty circulated topic these days. I hear it just out and about in my, everyday life now. But I think it's an interesting theory, this financially independent, retire early. So we're gonna dive into it and propose some thoughts and what we think and how it shows up in our lives as well. You got anything to add, B?
Yeah, I don't think I've started hearing about the concept in late 2010s. I think like 2018-ish.
Yeah.
That was when I first heard about it.
Mm-hmm.
But where I'm looking it up now, but apparently it was a concept since 1992 from Vicki Robbins' book, Your Money or Your Life. And then she talks about the earliest stages of fire. And I know during the 2000, maybe it's after 2010, maybe, there was a guy called Mr. Money Mustache, I believe. He had like an online financial blog, and then he was actually trying to achieve fire. I believe he did at an incredible early age, and then I think that just from there spiraled into the popularity that we hear about it today.
Okay, awesome. So the overarching, as it mentions in the title, the whole purpose of fire is to achieve this stage of early retirement, essentially. So that's getting you away from your typical 9-to-5 job, your W-2 job, as you'll commonly hear it, get you out of the rat race, we'll call it. So you can go against the traditional work life of, hey, I entered the workforce as a late teenager sometime, navigate a couple jobs, and I work until, I'm in my 60s, until the typical retirement age. When now, standardly, I have a couple years of life on my back end where I live off my, savings or what have you. And you're essentially working like 80% of your life to reap the benefits for that 20% of your life. And I think a lot of us can agree that that's kind of messed up. Where's the luxury, where's the quality of life in that? And it's a beautiful thing that as time progresses, I think we have some opportunities, both tangible opportunities, like there are things that exist now that didn't exist. So you said 1992 era, that didn't exist around the 90s, early 2000s, that we can take advantage of to set us up to retire, hopefully way earlier than our 60s. So we'll definitely talk about some of those things. I think we can talk about some of those things and just how. So for context, right? I'm 30. I know B, you're coming up on it in a couple of short years. What we've done in our life, right? Because we're not speaking from a vantage point of 60 and most of our years behind us, but what we've heard, what we hear people doing, and what we're currently doing to kind of set ourselves up to, possibly retire a little early. I'm going to kick it off with, I think one big thing, and this thread has been in some of our other episodes, is sacrifice, which I think is fairly obvious. If you want to retire earlier, you can't execute the traditional mold that I kind of just talked about of, hey, I'm going to get this job and I'm going to work for X amount of years, 20s to 60, and then retire. You have to sacrifice probably more earlier in your life in order to set things in motion so you can retire at this earlier age. Now, I know we're both, me currently and you previously, were in the military, which inherently has sacrifice from a time perspective. But if we take that example, because that's close to home for us, it has a lot of things in place that are benefits of the military, like us giving our life to service and, again, sacrificing this time. It allows us some benefits that we can take advantage of and have taken advantage of, i.e., GI Bill, VA loan, healthcare benefits. That's just one small piece of this long puzzle of trying to retire early. There's probably a million other elements of sacrifice that we could talk about, but I think sacrificing time and dedicating yourself to this plan early on is and you'll hear in investing or in most things, like the earlier you start, you better. So taking an early position in achieving FIRE.
The military thing you brought up, I didn't think about it until you brought it up, but military is I think one of the, it's not the easiest necessarily, but it is one of the most for sure ways you could FIRE if you decide to. Because I don't know if any other industry does this, but at least in the military, if you do 20 years, so let's say you join at 18, if you do 20 years and you're going to be 38, and at that point, you're going to be collecting a pension the day that you get out from your 20. And if you got injured in the service or whatnot, you're going to have disability payments. And you're not going to be living the most, elegant, luxurious life off those pensions, but it's something you do have the option to work or not to work. And I think that's the beauty of it.
And it's ironic you say that because neither one of us are going to do 20 years in service. But which is fine, right? Just not for us in the long run. But that's a phenomenal point that the military automatically built into the system of the military. Like you said, you do your 20 years, you collect your pension, you may get VA benefits on top of that. Or we could go down the rabbit holes, but there's some opportunity there, which is great because you think serving your country is a high honor. So it's great for all those active and veterans that they are, afforded some of those luxuries. If we were to assign some key tenets or principles to achieving FIRE, right, financially independent and retiring early, what might we say some of those things look like? I already mentioned one, I personally think is sacrifice. And I think in sacrifice, you almost have to adopt a lifestyle, which also goes to the sacrifice piece. Like you have to sacrifice things of a normal life, maybe some comfort, maybe some luxuries to live a life on top of the work that you actually do to achieve FIRE. Living a more minimal or frugal lifestyle might be something to be mentioned. In trying to achieve this, I think I'm probably a little more material than you. I don't think I'm super materialistic, but I like some nice shoes. I'll have some jewelry on, and sometimes actually, I was at the mall yesterday looking at a necklace, and it was kind of pricey. It's like I could do it, but I'm like, in my head, I literally go through a quick plan of like all the things I'm saving for, different accounts I have, and it just becomes hard to justify. And it's like, sure, it's just a necklace, like I don't need whatever, but it's because I'm actively working towards something like that. As little as that seems, like that may be that can constitute a sacrifice. And sometimes when it comes to financial, there's financially that's a pretty easy sacrifice, like not to get a necklace. But there's some bigger things that you might want to do or you might be afforded where you're like, man, at this time, at this stage in my life, this era I'm in, I cannot do that because I am saving for these other things. So I think sacrifice and frugality, I would say is a pillar, maybe.
Even if it's pricey, as long as the necklace is icy.
Ooh!
I think that it'll fit on you very nicely.
Oh man. What'd you eat this morning?
I did have breakfast today, which I haven't had breakfast in over like 2 weeks. I was like doing a little fast. I was doing a fast for like the last week and a half, not continuously, but I wasn't drinking caffeine at all. And this morning I had a cup of coffee, and then I just saw this little double energy.
Shot energy.
So I'm gonna be straight focused. Going back to the core principles, I think about it like this: at the end of your FIRE journey, whatever path that you take, you need money that's gonna be making more money to live off that money. The difference. And you can do it different ways, like how I think you can do it offensively, which means you just have to increase your income. And then as long as you increase your income and your lifestyle is the same, you're going to have a bigger delta to invest, to, save money, whatever your means is to accumulate money. And on the defensive side, if you keep getting the same income, what you talk about the frugality standpoint, and as long as your spend is lower, you can increase the delta on the other direction. And the best way to do it would be the combination of the two. You can increase your income while living frugally to an extent. That extent will differ from person to person. you're going to have the biggest delta there to invest as aggressively as you can. Not aggressive as in a risk level that's for person to person, but aggressively as in the percentage of your income that goes towards your investments. And that at the end of the day, that is FIRE. And then usually when people talk about it, the traditional FIRE is you calculate or you budget out how much money you need to spend to live your lifestyle in a month. So let's say you spend with rent, car payment, food, entertainment, whatever, you spend $4,000 a month, let's just say. And then when you multiply that 4,000 by 12, you're going to get 48,000. Let's call it 50,000 just for the extra buffer.
Okay.
And then you multiply that 50,000 by 25. I don't know what's 25, but it's 25. And you get a number that is $1.25 million, 1,250,000. And it's probably 25 because from there, the idea is that you can take the 4% rule is basically you take the amount that's invested, multiply it by 0.04 because that's 4% and that's 50,000. And then as long as your investments are growing each year by 4%, which is very attainable, you'll have an income of 50,000 that you can live off for. I mean, math wise, I think people disagree here, but I believe if it's 4%, you can live on indefinitely. As long, if you collect lower, that chance is going to increase. If you collect higher, that chance is going to decrease. I think that's how majority of the people approach FIRE.
That's a solid breakdown. All right, so going to the concept of pillars, I'm trying to think, do we have any other like tenets of FIRE that, we kind of touched on, you touched on saving, there's a saving element, there's an investing element, and you talked about offense and defense, which shout out to you for putting me onto the Pillars of Wealth book by David Green, who kind of breaks down the offensive, defense, and investing when it comes to money. So that's a good read for anybody that's interested. I think that's a good point, and how you kind of got to look at both ends. If you're trying to attain the FIRE lifestyle and you're like, okay, I just got to figure out how to make more, maybe passively, that's one element. But simultaneously trying to figure out how to save more, or more, I won't say more importantly, I guess that's subjective, invest as well, then I think that's where the real, no pun intended, but like your money is made, quite literally. So I think it's inevitable that we're going to get to this topic within this FIRE topic, but the passive income, I feel like that's a phrase that's also commonly thrown around in the financial world these days, trying to foster passive income. And I think, it's necessary to have a FIRE lifestyle, because unless you quite literally retire, like in the example we gave for the military and you're collecting a pension, like once you reach this point where you're kind of done working your standard job at a younger age, younger than what is traditionally done, again, working your whole life to about your 60s, you're going to still need to be generating some type of money to sustain yourself. So I think that's one of the big things for us that, we both dabble in the real estate world, you more than I, but so that's one way, we can, it's very sustainable over a long period of time, and we're trying to familiarize ourselves now while, dare I say, we're somewhat young, so we can kind of foster those skills, and, we can stay in that game for pretty much as long as we want. It doesn't require any going in a job, now sure, there's no like medical benefits or whatever, but we can, starting now, again, going back to that concept of starting early and developing, and it doesn't have to be real estate, but developing, you can do something that if you have a specific talent or, something that aligns more with who you are as an individual, whatever that may be, but finding those creative ways to bring in that money passively, again, earlier rather than later, I think is going to be a huge part of attaining that FIRE lifestyle.
The podcast is Rebel Wisdom, so we're trying to rebel against a common belief that, hey, maybe working till 60, maybe working till 65 is nothing wrong with that, obviously, but we're trying to rebel against other alternate ways to look at that. And FIRE is one of the ways to go against the traditional retirement of 60 to 65. Why is it so hard to do that for most people?
Why is it so hard to not work until you're 65?
Not that you work to achieve FIRE.
So I think it's either one of two things. One, they aren't privy to the concept. Like they don't know, nobody really talks about, it's it's not, I don't want to say a societal thing, but for this strategy specifically, I mean, it's not even strategy, more just like a general concept. They haven't heard of it, or they don't want to do the things necessary to achieve fire. Like I said, there's more sacrifice up front for the long-term rewards on the back end. So it's like, it's easy to just get in a job and work, standard hours, very repeatable. You have a repeatable regimen, and you just continue that because that's what's been done before. So I think it's hard because it's different.
It is. I think it's gonna be kind of cool to see the difference. Maybe not. Maybe not. But as we're growing up, when we were kids, I don't think our parents said anything about fire, or we never heard about it online until, at least I graduated after college.
Oh yeah, 100%.
Then this next generation of people, they're gonna start to see more and more of these concepts. They're gonna go through it through TikTok or YouTube, or I don't use TikTok personally, but my image of people using TikTok is these younger kids that made it. Very, very, very few of them, relative to amount of kids there are, and then they're trying to flex on their cars, nice houses, nice whatever, and then they just aspire to have that lifestyle as well. And then they're gonna be I think it could go both. It can go either way. One is that they're trying to get there as fast as possible, even if they have to fake it. They're gonna spend their money like there's no tomorrow. They're gonna try to flex as much as they can today so they can look rich and act rich. Or they see the reality of it is like, hey, I probably can't get there in the next 2 years, but in the next 10 years, that could be more of a reality.
Yeah.
And I believe if you stick with it, I think anyone can achieve a certain level of fire, which I'm going to introduce lean fire, which when people talk about fire, there's different levels of fire. And the fire is like the like the baseline. We talked about the 25 times. A lean fire is a concept that basically you're going to try to make your life lean as possible. So cut off all the fat, and you're living off the bare basic needs to survive, which might not include some of the things that you want, like entertainment, nice cars, nice house, whatever, but you will achieve fire a lot faster. So maybe you only need $2,000 a month to survive, and 2,000 times 12 would be 24,000 times 25 will be, you only need $600,000. I say only, but $600,000, it's not a crazy, unattainable amount. I think if you invest over a good time period, you can get there. I really believe that everyone can through some sort of sacrifice. So I don't even know how I got into this lean fire stuff, but I think people can do it. And it's hard to see the compound growth of your investments, because at first, when I joined the Navy at 22, I was putting away maybe I was putting away like $1,000 in investments every month. And I know for some people that may seem like a lot, but I still have my student loans. I was making a payment. Luckily, I didn't have a car payment because I just bought my car cash. We lived in Japan, which the used cars were very, very, very cheap.
I got mine for $500.
Yeah, which is crazy. Yeah, and I was also in the Navy, so as we're getting deployed out to sea, I did not spend any money besides rent.
So we had
So I would, and it sucked. Living on the ship sucked. It's not like a cruise. You're just rocking on a boat.
Need to put that out there. Not a cruise.
With one of the worst foods you can possibly eat let's say in the United States, because I'm sure, some people might be enjoying that meal if they come from a more, third world country type. But it's definitely not anything luxury. Let's put it that way. I often chose not to eat because the food looked so gross or tasted so weird. And so you get to save a lot of money that way. But it's not like when I came back, I was still partying. I was in my 20s. I wasn't married. We were going out partying. I still got to save $1,000 a month. And then literally when I got out, I ended up having like a couple $100,000 in my investments. I was like, that's a lot for, just a little $1,000 a month. So if I wanted to, I'm just giving an example. If I wanted to achieve that lean fire status, I was already like 1/3, maybe 1/4 of the way there. And I was like 6 at the time. When I come up around this topic, there's a lot of people that's motivated by it, but there's a large majority of the people that's like, oh, that's not me. Like I can't do that. But I think I truly believe that it is possible for most people as long as you have the right mindset.
You brought up a couple things I want to touch on. Hopefully I don't forget. But I think you threw out some numbers and stuff, and I think FIRE, although there's some calculus to it, it's a pretty like nebulous idea of just like just saying retire early is so ambiguous. It's like,
oh, right.
What does that mean? Like, what do you mean by retire? Like, is it the quitting my day job and you say early? Like, what defines early, right? So for most people in this concept, I think you could start at your end state and almost work your way backwards. What I mean by that is define like, what age do I not want to be working my W-2 job or whatever it may be? So what?
Next year.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Very lofty. Hey, you can do it.
No, you definitely can. People,
you know what I mean?
I have seen people do it.
Yes.
So.
By like 30. Like, what age do you want to retire at? How much money do you want to have at the time that you define you want to stop working? And setting these parameters gives you something to work towards, and then you can work backwards with your calculations. So I'll admit, for me, I'm not a math guy, and I kind of just had good money principles and lived off those, but for a long time I wasn't really conscious of my spending, saving, and investing. I would just, be like, I would have, it's kind of hard to explain. I would have like a rough idea in my head, like, okay, I spent about this much this year, or excuse me, this month. Okay, I save this much my paycheck. But I think if you really want to have a tangible goal and achieve it, you got to break these numbers down. So as you know, as one of my best friends, and we talk about these things often, like I have certain, not calculators, but certain trackers for these things, where you can tangibly see what I'll say buckets of your money is growing or how your savings is trending. And you mentioned like, for your personal journey at that age when we entered the Navy, you were saving $1,000 a month. But if you could just put a percentage of your paycheck, because everybody's income differs, define whatever that percentage is best for you and maintain that, or even try to increase that percentage, maybe as you get certain bonuses or certain things happen in your career path where you elevate, and maintain that. And this is just for the one concept of saving. That is how you work towards this, is how you work towards a FIRE lifestyle. And I think a big thing, this might be a like side tangent, but people have a certain lifestyle, right? You live within that lifestyle, you make more money, and then you change your lifestyle due to your income or your financial situation changing. Unnecessarily though, if you make $5,000 a month and you can live off of like your necessities take up, let's say $2,500 of that, half of that, and then you get an increase, so now you're making $7,000 a month. If you can live within that $2,500 a month, why not challenge yourself to stay within that? And now you have more money, $2,000 additional dollars to save and or invest. Those practices will help get you towards that FIRE lifestyle. That's just one minuscule thing to take note of. Because I feel like it's hard as a human, and again, with the societal pressures, to not make more money and then get nicer things or do more experiences. It's hard. And this is definitely not me saying don't treat yourself, don't reward yourself, because I am a big proponent of both treating myself and rewarding myself, but within limits. And again, if you have no plan to hold you accountable, it's easier to do those things. If you have a plan and you're like, okay, weekly, I'm going to save, invest, and spend this. Monthly, I'm going to save, invest, and spend this. And you track these things, I think there needs to be some hard calculus, which was a hard lesson I had to learn. I thought I could do it with just rough numbers and just kind of estimating. But no, if you put this stuff on paper, it not only holds you accountable, but it gives you a more clear vision of your end state. And I think with FIRE specifically, just like many other goals, it's key though to have some calculus with it and to put it on paper so you can have something tangible, again, to hold you accountable.
No, that's a good point. But I do not see myself like treating myself or, giving a reward. Like, even if I have to buy something, it's like, dude, I know I want to buy this and I can't believe I'm just buying it right now. And it just feels wrong to me, maybe because, I think I had like an iPhone 6.
Yeah.
And I was like, why do I need a new iPhone? But then eventually, literally my phone was barely working. So I'm like, all right, I'll upgrade to the iPhone 10. And then I was like, why do I need a new iPhone? Yep. So I didn't upgrade till iPhone 14. And then it was limping on its last leg. And then it was kind of funny. I recently at work, my work buddies and I, like, we're just going out to eat, and it's always like a question when we go out to eat, yo, who's driving, right? And I don't mind driving, so like, I mean, I bring my keys just in case. Like, I mean, no one brought their keys, all right, like, I got it, let's hop in my car. And then one of my buddies, he tells me that he lives paycheck to paycheck, which he earns a good income. We're both engineers and young in our later 20s, making good money. He tells me that he's living paycheck to paycheck, he's about to have a kid. But then when he looks at my car, he's like, bro, like, why are you driving this thing? I was like, you could literally afford such a nicer car. Because I always tell my buddies my dream car is like a Tesla. Yeah, they say, like, dude, you can go buy that right now. I'm like, yes, I could go buy that right now, but I already have a car. When I went to the dealership, when I moved to, so I live in Phoenix, but I moved to Phoenix from Japan after getting out. And I went to the dealership. I was like, hey, it was like when I bought my car, it was like that used car, like the thing where used cars were getting priced up like crazy or whatever. So I was like, I started looking at used cars first. I saw the cheapest new car that I could buy, which is like a Kia. I think it was like $23,000. Yeah. The cheapest that I could find at the time. And then I was like, all right, like, let's look for the used model of that car. And I think it was like a 2-year, like I ended up buying a 2023 Kia. And then I looked at the 2021. I think it was like $2,000 less. So I was like, okay, I mean, like, at that point, I'd rather spend $2,000 more to buy the newest car with no miles on it. So I ended up doing that. And also my wife as well, we bought the same car, different colors, the cheapest one you could find. And then the more I live life, just the more I realize that the goals I'm trying to achieve is very different than how society, the majority of the people, move around in their daily life. Because I just don't see a need. And as long as the car works and I can play music, it's fine. I can get to work. So I don't know, it's interesting to see how different people, live about their life. And I see how it is very hard to achieve fire in the first place because all these shiny objects are floating around and you want to make it look like you're doing well for everyone else.
In listening to you say that, I captured one overarching thing from that. Do you or do you not think money is a mindset? Making money is a mindset.
Dude, it's like 90% mindset.
Right? And some people don't hear that. Yeah, I didn't hear that till I was like older or really started reading a lot. But it's interesting to think about, like, money, and you hear some people say like the money mindset, but it is a mindset. Yes, you have to physically do actual things to make money. It's not like, okay, I think this way, like, I'm going to get money. But, like, in so many ways, increasing your capital is a mindset. And you highlighted that in some of the things that you just said. You said, I have a car, don't need the newest car. I have the means to get this car, but right now, like, I'm good. And also, it's almost like we get that guilt in our head because you're working towards something. You have laid out an end state that you're getting towards, and getting this thing goes against that end state. So if you're someone that has no end state, it's going to be easier to buy those things because you don't have anything working counter to you, like buying that thing in that moment. But you in your head know, hey, I'm trying to do this. I'm trying to get here. I'm trying to have this by this time. So it holds you accountable. But again, that's all part of your mindset. I just want to highlight, because it was almost a revolutionary moment for me in my life when I realized that, hey, a lot of this is just how you think, how you plan, how you manifest, how you calculate. Again, mental. And that was a huge eye-opening point to me. And I think that's also very pertinent, that money mindset piece, when talking about fire, because it's also like you got to put yourself in that mindset almost. Thank you for sharing that, because that helped me realize that, and I'm glad I'm able to bring this up, that I think a lot of people far wealthier than I would attest to the fact that making money is a mindset. So before you get all these hard things in place, you got to first, I think the fundamental piece is adopting this mindset, or first even learning like how to think, like learn what that mindset is. And I think one of the best ways to do that is to listen to, interact with, read from the people that are there and that have this mindset.
I agree. Like, a lot of people, now you got me on a tangent now.
Let's do it.
But coming from the Navy, at least on the ship side, it was very usual for you to work maybe like 50, 60 hours. It's not anything crazy, to be honest. Like anyone can do that and still have a good social life, which I believe I did. I was probably working 60 hours a week, but then I still went to the gym from time to time. We play basketball. We'll go out on the weekends, go out to eat, whatever. But as soon as I got out, I went to the traditional 40 hours a week with my new employer. And I'm just like, when I got home, I'll just like put on YouTube and just kind of waste my time the entire time. And I kind of realized that very quickly. And I was just like, dude, I need to be doing something after work. And I didn't have that something. So I was like, you know what? Like, I just want extra money to, throw out investments or whatever. You can maybe a spending money, whatever, right? And then I was married by then, and my wife and I were like, hey, we're both working, but when we just come home and we just kind of sit around, do nothing, let's just do something that we can do together to make money. And we came to doing Instacart runs. Basically, Instacart is the app to get groceries for people. And then we wanted to do that because we wanted to do it together, because there's a lot of ways to make money, but we just wanted to spend more time with each other, because we 8 hours a day, and you come back, you just see each other for a little bit. But those things, it's like, it's okay to work more than 40 hours, right? But I don't understand the idea that people are like, oh, like I'm already working 40 hours, like I can't work more. I hear that a lot. But I think all of humans' history, I think people worked more than 40 hours, 7 days, and probably they worked 7 days a week. And I believe it's like relatively a new concept within the last 100 years that Monday through Friday is the work day or work week, and you only work 40 hours. Like, I think that's a fairly new concept. It is a positive way that we're trending. But humans are meant to work in some capacity. Like, you hear a lot about, you can guess when a person dies based on when they quit working.
I have heard that.
It's like, I think the data said like it's very predictable that when they quit working, they're going to pass away within the next 10 years. And when I say work, it could be a W-2, it could be a passion project, but doing something that you get up every day for, that you have a sense of responsibility to do. And it's like to the people that's gonna be hearing about fire or hearing about this podcast, hopefully, some people are going to be like, dude, I don't have $1,000 to invest, for example, right?
Sure.
If you get by right now on 40 hours a week, you can make extra $1,000 a week or a month. Because when I was doing Instacart with my wife, I think I was making like $300 a week or something like that. I think I did it 4 or 5 times a week. And I mean, if you add that up, it's $1,200 a month. That's the investing money that you need.
Yes.
And if you plug it into a little calculator and like, oh, okay, if I invest this much and then I get a 10% return on average if you invest in S&P 500 index fund or whatever, that's like a very achievable thing. But then I don't know, I think that portion is the mindset, because for example, Instacart, you literally need 0 skills to do Instacart. You just find a item on the grocery store and you put it in a bag. And you just go give it to that person. 0 skill. The greatest thing is that you can be listening to music. You can be doing whatever while you're shopping.
You can be listening to the Rebel Wisdom podcast.
Oh, yeah. But I just want to challenge that aspect of, that narrative that I think we grew up with, work 40 hours a week. I don't know. I think that's just, it's like a nice baseline, but that's like the minimum baseline. You can always do more. And if you want to get to the state where most people don't get to, for example, retiring early, majority of the people do not get there.
Right.
So if you want to get there, go above the average, you have to do stuff that the normal people are not doing, aka maybe working 60 hours a week for at least a little bit. And later on, I found other ways to make money that doesn't take me bagging groceries for other people on the app. But that's just to give an example. And I was still doing that when I was making well over 6 figures.
Based on some things you said, I'm going to use this time to segue. I think this is great. So you talked about doing all these additional things and how like what you said, it has been shown, and I've seen it too, I read it somewhere, that X amount of years, there's been studies that back this, X amount of years after you stop working. And this isn't anybody. Like, if I stopped working tomorrow at 30, in 10 years, I'm going to, like, wither away. No. But this is, once you get to a certain age, like in a more elderly state, to your point, once you stop working, it's been shown that you can correlate that to almost a decline in life or health. So, and the purpose of FIRE is to stop working essentially at an earlier age. So I think it's interesting that you could take FIRE to get to a comfort level or a quality of life at a certain age, but to parallel it to what you're saying, it doesn't necessarily mean you have to stop working. Because oftentimes, a lot of people are driven by work, are motivated by work, or are, again, it could be more something aligned with who you are or your passion. So now you have the liberty to do something you've always wanted to do, but that maybe that thing you wanted to do wasn't going to sustain you or your family. And I think it's kind of twofold in the sense of, now that you have got yourself to this FIRE state of life, right? You can do these other things that you want to do, and you're complementing the life that you've already built for yourself. And it's also, again, allowing you almost to live longer in an emotional health sense, but also you're bringing into your finances. So I think that's interesting that we're elaborating on how FIRE allows you to stop working at an earlier age, but it also could just allow you to work differently, I'll say, at an earlier, which I think is maybe the real crux of, I don't want to say what we're trying to get at. I think maybe you and I, right? Like, at least, so we can turn this personally. Like, I want to choose FIRE, but I don't plan to not be working by.
You just have
40,
the
50.
option to work on what you want.
Exactly.
And then work could be to get a paycheck, or work on something that necessarily doesn't give you a paycheck, but then that's what you like doing. And then there's also a different FIRE concept called barista FIRE, where you essentially fired at this point and retired, but at the same time, like, you just want something to do every day, so you become a barista, and you just serve coffee, and maybe you like coffee. A lot of people like coffee, and that's just something like, just work part-time at Starbucks. And I'm sure Starbucks is a fun environment. I never worked there, but it seems like it. But yeah, I think like, with the FIRE thing, I don't think we talked about this yet. Financially independent, retire early. That flows nice because it spells out FIRE as well. Yeah. But really, the meaning behind it is having the option to retire early if you wanted to. Like, for example, I do not want to FIRE right now. I do not want to retire from my W-2 because I do like my job. Does it align with my mission in life? It doesn't. But I do like my job. It's very interesting to learn my industry. So I do want to keep collecting a paycheck, and it pays decently nice. And sure, like, I'm going to have to live more frugally if I quit my job, but I'll be fine. But I want to keep going for more. And that's, a lot of people forget about that. It's just that having the option to retire early, and it's just like, in your head, it is nice to know that if you get fired tomorrow, like, you will be okay to an extent. Whereas if you don't have the option to retire early, you're screwed. Like, how, collect unemployment until you find another, hopefully a decent job, right? Yeah. So it's the option piece is, I think, very, very huge that we don't really talk about too much.
I like how, hearing you say the full acronym, financial independent and retire early, got me thinking. And I was going to ask you, and then also trying to ask myself, are they, like, what's the fundamental difference between financial independence and early retirement? Because you said you don't want to retire early, right? Well, no, you want to retire early, but you don't want to retire right now. So then I was like, okay, do you want to be, or would you consider yourself financially independent right now?
I think I'm more on the lean FIRE status, where if I quit right now, I can pay off my mortgage, or I can pay my mortgage every month. I can cover my food bill every month. And, like, in my budget, I have like $1,000 discretionary spending between my wife and I. So if we get $500 each to spend on whatever without questions asked, to cover all that, I can cover all that and still be okay.
Right. It's funny. Like, you don't want to retire now, but you are kind of financially independent. So I'm just trying to see, just breaking down the acronym and seeing, because I was like, dang, is financial independence synonymous with early retirement? And I don't think it is. I think there's kind of a fundamental difference. And I'm like, I think if you retire early, that implies that you're financially independent. But if you're financially independent, you can't necessarily retire early. You know what I mean? I'm just trying to like dissect it.
Yeah, no, you hit it on it. I'm guessing you don't follow a lot of fire subreddits on Reddit.
Yeah, no, I don't.
Okay, so a lot of people say it's like, hey, I'm at this point, I achieved Phi, but I haven't achieved RE, retire early. So yeah, they do talk about that. Yeah.
Okay, cool. I'm not going crazy. Yeah, I was just like, I think that's very interesting to think about that way. I think we would do a disservice not to kind of just at least bring that up in the dissection of the full acronym. So yeah, it's funny that, you know, we're talking about how to achieve this status in life of a concept that promotes you not having to work earlier than what was traditionally proposed. But in that same breath, we're going against that, rebelling against that, and saying that, hey, you might want to still work, or continuing to work would be beneficial. But you said it best, and that it's just really achieving that quality of life, or that the point in life where you can ability to retire early. I just really wanted to anchor on that. I think that was profound.
All right, you want to switch gears into speaking about how we're a rebel. We rebelled the idea of traditional retirement with FIRE.
Right.
Now I want to rebel against the FIRE movement completely.
Exactly.
Because I think it's gotten to a point where majority of the people are, you know, retiring around, 50, 60-ish. But at the same time, the FIRE movement, I think it has become mainstream, at least the concept of it.
If not, it's definitely close. Yeah.
Yeah. So I hear it around a lot, and I want to rebel against that because this is Rebel Wisdom, and I want to make sure we dive into that layer, one layer deeper.
Okay.
So, FIRE movement is a fraud because why?
So, restate the question.
Okay, so the FIRE movement is a great concept.
I would agree.
And everyone, if I told a random guy on the street, hey, would you like to be financially independent and retire at 40? Yeah. Like 99% of the people would be like, hell yeah, I want to do that. But when you actually look at the practicality of FIRE, I think it is close to impossible. Some people will do it, but I think it is practically impossible to FIRE. So I have some thoughts, but I want to hear what you think, why I would think that, and why I want to rebel against the FIRE movement in the first place.
Is it because I think we may have said it a little bit, but it gets you to a state of like the people. If I'm an individual that wants to FIRE, wants to achieve the state of FIRE, I feel like, this is my opinion, like it implies a level of work or a level of someone that's gonna want to. You're almost like goal driven, right? Like you're trying to get to that state of FIRE, not just like for a reason. And if you're somebody that wants to achieve a FIRE lifestyle, you probably want to achieve that for like a larger reason. Like you're not just trying to get to FIRE so you hey, I made it, I'm here, I don't want to do anything else. It's kind of like wealth. I feel like nobody wants to get like to a specific dollar amount, like, hey, I've achieved this dollar amount, like I'm out, I'm not making any more money, I'm done. Like that just seems almost illogical. So it's funny, like I think you're saying like nobody, I don't want to say nobody, I don't want to speak in absolutes, but I find it hard to believe that somebody's going to want to achieve FIRE and just be done. Like there's a beyond. So I almost feel like FIRE it's pitched as a end state, but it's really a stepping stone to a continuation to do something else, which is maybe what you're getting at.
I think you hit it directly. You hit the nail directly on its head, and you said it much better than how I would have even thought about saying it, because that is good. The status of achieving FIRE is, people think that is the end state, and then now it's a starting point. Dude, that's so good, because I'm on the same page with you. Like I heard, so a lot of the podcasts I listen to, and I still listen to this day, Brandon Turner, who is a real estate investor. He used to run the Bigger Pockets podcast, and he now runs the Better Life podcast, which this podcast is very influenced by that podcast. And he talks about how he started investing in real estate, and it was somewhere in his 20s where he achieved lean FIRE. And then he doesn't say lean FIRE, but that's what it sounds like when he tells his story. But he actually retired early. I think he was like 28 or 29 or something like that.
Insane.
And retirement, when you think of retirement traditionally, is, I don't even know what people do. Like, They just watch TV on the couch
Yeah.
and then like wait for their kids or grandkids to come around.
Yeah.
I guess I don't know, but that's exactly what he did. He wasn't. I don't think he was married. He definitely didn't have kids at that point. But he just basically sat on his couch every single day and just watched TV every single day.
Yeah.
And I think he said he lasted 3 months in retirement because at that point he was like, dude, what am I doing with my life? Like, I don't want to just watch. That sounds nice when you're in the grind every single day, but you're going to realize quickly that's just not what you want to do for the rest of your life. And that's the point where he was like, okay. And I think he just skyrocketed from there in real estate. But to actually achieve fire, you have to be doing so many things right. You have to sacrifice. You have to make good money. With the good money that you make, you don't want to have lifestyle creep. You want to invest it. You need to invest it well in what you know and continuously do that for X amount of years. And that takes a special person to actually achieve that sort of, I would say, success. When that guy or girl achieves that kind of success, the natural thing is like, sure, even if they quit working their W-2 or 1099 or their day job, there's no way they're going to be satisfied with just chilling on the couch because now if they're just bored at home, it might increase their spending, which is going to defeat the, purpose and overcome the fire number that you set out for yourself. And that person is just not going to not do anything. It is, I think, almost impossible.
Yeah, right.
I think some people do it, and I have heard stories of some people doing it, but you also never hear about, I never get the updates on their life. Mm-hmm. Like, oh, hey, I achieved fire at age 38. I'm going to go ahead and retire. I quit my job 3 weeks ago. Okay, cool, great. But I've always failed to follow up in their lifestyle because I'm reading it on Reddit most of the time, and I don't follow that person's. I mean, it's whatever, I'm just reading it. And you never know if they actually continued to be retired for eternity or they're just so bored that they picked up a job because they wanted to. They started a company. They started doing something that takes up a lot of their time, their passion project. When I say fire movement is a fraud, is not saying that the fire movement, I think the fire movement, when you follow it and try to achieve that as an end goal, I think that gives you good traits for you as a human to survive in this society. Yes. Like money management, working hard, working smart, investing wisely. Those are all the attributes and qualities that you're going to build up over time. So the movement itself is a good thing, trying to get to the end state. But once you get to the end state, I don't think the end state itself is good. Does that make sense?
That does make sense.
If, for example, I'm gonna keep rambling because I feel very passionate about this topic. So with that person achieving fire, most of the time they do have good qualities or they're skilled at something that they do. That's why they're able to achieve a status that most people can't. So you were born on this earth with a God-given talent. So why not keep utilizing that talent to make society better instead of retiring and, not doing anything for the society? I think it's all about giving back, and, you could give back in a way to keep working at a company. Maybe you might not have too much of an impact at that point, but you can mentor someone, you can keep doing stuff, you can keep making money to maybe donate to a charity. And I think it's just a waste of talent to actually retire and not do anything. I'm talking about the traditional retirement, right? Because retiring, I think there's different definitions for everyone. The traditional is what we talked about, sitting on the couch, chilling every day, watching TV or whatever. I don't know what they do. But retirement to me is more synonymous with what you said. Is retirement to me is financially independent. Like at that point you can retire, and then ability to retire is like retirement to me. Does that make sense?
So, because you could have the ability to retire. That's how I was wrestling with. You could have the ability to retire. Well, I mean, that's pretty much what we're saying. You could have the ability to retire, but most people that achieve the ability to retire very early on got there on principles that are going to drive them to continue to work, which is, again, summarizing what you're saying. Like, I find it hard to believe, and you said like nearly impossible to find someone that is going to get there and just sit dormant because the things that got you there are going to drive you to continue. And this is excluding the examples of like hitting the lottery, a large inheritance, like This is talking about the people that foster the skills and the things that alter their lifestyle to achieve a fire status. Like you know, truly develop those things within yourself. I can't see them just lying dormant and not, like you said, contributing in some sense. I think so. You said they should, you know, contributing to society or whatever. I think that's subjective. Like I would say, like that's your opinion, but my opinion, I think they should do something. Are they required to? No, sure. But I feel like I might be getting repetitive. But somebody that put the time and effort to create a lifestyle to get to the fire state is not just gonna abandon everything they worked for to become this person and then not continue doing something. I can't see it.
I have a personal question for you.
Yes.
We talked about the whys a lot, so I'm not asking that, but what I'm asking is, I don't think we ever talked about it on our weekly calls outside the podcast, is when do you, okay, so I'll ask one question at a time. Do you want to achieve fire?
Yes.
When do you want to achieve fire by?
That's a phenomenal point because I don't think I've put an age on it. I haven't put an age on it.
Do you have a rough idea?
Yeah, I do. I would say like late 40s.
No, you should just stay in the Navy and you can do 20 years.
No, but that's the thing. But it's dynamic because I would say, I don't even say late 40s. I would say, because I'm 30, like in my 40s, there has to be some level of, well, I'll just minimize all this to say like, I'm not staying in the Navy because that doesn't align with enough of me. I'm not saying I have to be doing my dream job, but like it doesn't align with me enough to stay in, to retire, etc. So it has to be some level of something I'm willing to do. I would say 40s.
So when you say 40s, is that like retiring from your day job so you can pursue something else, or just okay? When do you want to achieve financial independence?
I would say as soon as possible, but there's only like so much I could do in a day. But I want to be financially independent as soon as I can. I feel like I'm gonna keep doing things. Or it's within reason because I'm balancing so many other things. But like I want to keep doing things until the point where I'm financially independent. I'm going to continue. Like, you know, I'm actively creating a lifestyle to like become financially independent. So literally, whenever I guess I can sustain myself. But again, the reason that one's so hard to answer is because like you're married. I think you have less variables than I am. Like you already have some of those things, but like I'm still pursuing that state in my life. So within my relationship, there's still things like trying to figure out where it's like I kind of account for myself, but kind of accounting for somebody else. Where it's like, you know, you and your wife are already joint, and it's like that element you don't think about because like it's already happened. In that question, I wrestle with like, okay, am I considering my partner, or is it just me because I'm not married? But I am like to think I'm actively working towards a situation where I can be financially independent and sustaining the lifestyle that I live right now. And that's what I'm saying. Are they synonymous? Like without a W-2 job, but that's also like, that's retirement. So that's a great question. I guess I'll say I would like to be able to standardly retire, be able to, not like retire, but be able to retire in my 40s. But like, I want to achieve financial independence way earlier, like literally, yeah, as soon as possible. I don't know if I have a time. I don't even know if that kind of answers your question.
No, it does not.
Yeah.
But I'm just trying to put it out in the world.
No, this is great.
Yeah. So you can go play basketball at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday.
Right.
And just hoop on some young kids as the old man.
I mean, I guess like if you were to ask yourself the questions, what does that look like for you?
I don't know. For retire early, I don't know. It sounds so weird, and I guess I always been weird in terms of my mindset relative to a lot of people. I do want to keep climbing the corporate ladder a little bit. I do so I was in the Navy. I had good amount of responsibility, I feel like. And when I got out in my new job, I don't have anyone working for me now. Like I have my bosses I report to, and it's been a nice break for a little bit because I always been in management side, and now that I don't have people direct reports to me, it's like a weird feeling, but it's like it is a nice break because I think the hardest part of any management job, it's not the actual job itself, but the people side of it. But I do want to get back into management side and be able to influence decisions at my company. Like I said, I do like my company. I do like the industry. I think it's a very interesting industry.
Yeah.
For example, for everyone that's listening, I work in the semiconductor industry, and how chips are made that go on your phone, and like how all this stuff that it's so interesting. I don't know. I like technology. So I do want to eventually go up to, you know, some VP or exec level type role in whatever company. And that seems like it'll give me a lot of things to work on. And also on the side, I'll never quit the real estate side because I also like that. But that just gives me the time to work, you know, 40 hours a week to really focus on something with the structure. I do like that structure. It is nice to have structure. It's easy. It's easy.
Yeah, exactly.
It's easy to have a structure. It's like, hey, come here at this time and do these things. I'm like, okay, cool. Like, not too much thinking involved in that. Right. Maybe in the tasks of the job, you might have to think, but then on the polar opposite of it, investing and trying to be an entrepreneur, like you literally have to be solely driven by you. And so that is, I also like that. And like I said, I don't need too much to live. I don't wear any jewelry. Like I don't need nice things for now.
I say that's a nice polo you got on, bro. I don't know.
I bought this for work, just trying to look a little bit of professional because everyone just wears t-shirts. I was like, I just put a little collar.
There you go. Yeah. What size is that, man? I might need to borrow that.
But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I definitely didn't answer your question, but I don't know. Maybe when I really find out my purpose in life, I can have more clarity on what I want to do. But I just know whatever I find something that I'm really passionate about, like my goal in my life, I know that real estate would help because of I wouldn't be constrained by worrying about how to put food on the table for my family. So I'm just trying to set that up for myself and really trying to impact, you know, at least small number of people. Hopefully bigger is better, and I can give 100% of my efforts because I don't have to worry about money. That's how I think about it.
Well said. I like that as a closing thought. I think that's really good, and it echoes some of the other things we've been saying this whole time. Just to highlight the opposite side or get the full spectrum, do you think, and I think we kind of already talked about it, I don't think we painted it as a downside of it, but do you think there's any like downsides to fire? Or
I think there's a lot of downsides to fire.
Anything that we kind of like didn't touch on already? Or again, I don't think if we did, we said it, this may be viewed as a downside to fire.
You know, like when I don't think I'm old yet. My wife says I'm old, but when you're, I don't even put an age to it because but when you are old, relatively, I think you look back on your life as you live through your experiences and your memories. And I think you might be cutting back on a few of the memory side of things, like 20s. I mean, to my honest opinion, I think you can do pretty much the same things in your 20s as you can in your 30s.
Okay.
Maybe some stuff might start dropping off at 40s and definitely by 50s, right? But because of the sacrifice that you put on yourself during your 20s, you may not have had some of the experiences that a typical people in their 20s might experience. But I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing because it is fun and you can look back at it. But honestly, if you have a goal that you're driven towards, that could also add to the memory and experience side that, you know, it just, you might be missing some, but you might be gaining other things. So that's definitely a con. It's like people that, you know, most of us have childhood memories that we can all kind of relate to, like playing in the playground or playing Pokemon or like playing card games, playing whatever. But then when some people don't have that, it's like you just can't relate with something at just by that, but they may also have gained something else as an exchange. So yeah, I think there's definitely pros and cons of it.
Well put, my friend. And I think that ability to recognize that what you give up now will pay dividends in the future, I think that's a very mature outlook. And I just don't think some people have reached that maturity at that age or that level to be able to have that foresight. I agree, it's going to look like a negative real time, but you're sacrificing, to bring it full circle, now for a more, I don't want to say lavish future, but maybe a future that aligns with something that you want or who you are. I don't know that I have any negatives to add other than the negatives are highly subjective. As the one you just brought up, like I could say the sacrifice is a negative, but like depends on how you look at it.
It's going to be harder to maintain what you do because people will criticize you for it. They will say, like, oh, dude, like, why are you doing that? Like, you should try to live it up, blah, 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 blah. And then the mental toughness to keep going towards your goals, I think that's going to be very challenging. And I was fortunate enough to surround myself around people that would support my goals. But I know I see so many people that are like, yeah, like my family is so against it. My friends are against it. My spouse is against it. And that's going to be hard. That's hard.
Yeah.
Love is Blind. The Love is Blind, the Johnny guy.
Okay, the one that got married. Johnny
Yeah.
Her name's escaping me. But
Yeah,
yes.
Yeah, but he was like, I remember one interview, he was like, yeah, I'm all about trying to invest and retire early. He never seen Fire.
Yeah, I remember too. He was talking to her dad, I think.
And his spouse was like, yeah, I don't know. We don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, so we should live it up today. And it's like, oh, I guess he's not achieving that.
Hey, they got married, so they're going to make it work.
Yeah, hopefully.
Yeah.
I mean, people change.
I feel good. I don't have anything additional. That was a great talk. Hopefully everybody was able to extract some little nugget from that, or food for thought, man. If nothing else gives you guys something to think about, I always leave these feeling filled in that we got to talk about so much and it's thought-provoking, but also like still just even after, the episode's over or whatever, I just having thoughts to further chew on and to think about. So I hope we can offer that to a larger audience. That's great. Eric, thank you everybody for tuning in. If you don't have anything, that's it. Thanks for another great episode. We'll catch you guys next week.